Radical Islamic terror. India and the United States will together combat radical Islamic terror. The two countries have also put Pakistan terror on notice, and that remains our top focus story. So there was a joint address to journalists by the US President and the Prime Minister, where both India and the US have talked about tackling terror. Donald Trump said he's working with Pakistan to confront terrorists operating from the Pakistani soil. He went on to say that during his discussions with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they reaffirmed their commitment to protect the citizens from radical Islamic terror. Trump's anti-terror message was the second in as many days. Remember, speaking at the Namaste Trump event at Motera in Gujarat yesterday, the US President had also stressed on the need to fight radical Islamic terror. Global terror watchdog, the Financial Action Task Force, has already retained Pakistan in the grey list for not acting against terrorists like Hafiz Mohammed Saeed and that Maulana of terror, Masood Azhar.
In our discussions, Prime Minister Modi and I affirmed our two countries' commitment to protecting our citizens from radical Islamic terrorism. In this effort, the United States is also working productively with Pakistan to confront terrorists who operate on its soil.
हम अपने होमलैंड्स की सुरक्षा और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय अपराध से लड़ने के लिए भी सहयोग बढ़ा रहे हैं। आज होमलैंड सिक्योरिटी पर हुए निर्णय से इस सहयोग को और बल मिलेगा। आतंक के समर्थकों को जिम्मेदार ठहराने के लिए आज हमने अपने प्रयासों को और बढ़ाने का निश्चय किया है। प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने ड्रग्स और ओपियोइड क्राइसिस से लड़ाई को प्राथमिकता दी है। आज हमारे बीच ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग, नार्को टेररिज्म और ऑर्गेनाइज्ड क्राइम जैसी गंभीर समस्याओं के बारे में एक नए मैकेनिज्म पर भी सहमति हुई है।
So let's now try and make sense of what India and the United States together intend to do in combating radical Islamic terror and Pakistan state-sponsored terror. I want to bring into this conversation India Today's Shiv Arur, Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu, our strategic affairs analyst, Sushant Sareen with us on the broadcast. Kamal, there's a pact on homeland security. Give us details.
Well, this has been a sustained effort between the United States and India, and it started a couple of years ago, and now it's only moved strength to strength. Remember, internal security for India is a very key, important point. Even during elections, it was really mentioned. But yes, in Modi too, remember, this is going to be an important facet. So not only are we engaging in defense deals with the United States, we are also being a global strategic partnership. What this joint statement also reflects is not just a message of intent. This is also a deeper relationship between India and United States and US understanding the need of how India has been a victim of terror as far as terrorism emanating from Pakistan is concerned. Even as far as surgical strikes were concerned, they were informed. Then there was obviously when the Wing Commander Abhinandan episode happened, US being in the loop of things. So very clearly, United States has been a close partner. We don't want to be a tier 2 or tier 3 friend of United States. This is obviously an upgrade as far as India is concerned, and being closer, being a trusted ally and a friend is important as far as India and United States are concerned. But clearly the takeaway is important because not only in Motera Stadium, there's a reiteration about Pakistan-based terrorism by Donald Trump, United States President, a clear messaging as far as India is concerned.
Remember, there is a press conference scheduled for Homeland security, extremely critical. Radical Islamic terror, need to counter radical Islamic terror, and US President talks about working with Pakistan to tackle terror. As far as India is concerned, is that working, Shiv?
Well, the fact that the president has said it not once but twice, shows that this is of extreme significance, to both India and the United States. Yesterday there were some misgivings about, the president having some positive things to say about Pakistan cooperating in the war on terror. But today, re-emphasizing the fight against radical Islamic terror, where India and the US are cooperating, is on point, Gaurav. That is precisely what this fight is really all about. Pakistan, as a state sponsor of terror, plays many different mind games and double games as far as the United States is concerned. The Trump administration itself has been quite ambiguous and quite, has spoken in different voices when it comes to Pakistan. There is the shadow of the imminent deal with the Taliban that also muddies waters a little bit. So there are many different things to consider right now. On India's side, having Trump re-emphasize cooperation against radical Islamic terror is hugely significant, given that India considers that an issue of primacy and one where cooperation between the India and the United States can only go higher.
Okay. Radical Islamic terror. Is there a distinction or a difference in our appreciation of the term radical Islamic terror and Donald Trump's appreciation of that term? I want to bring in Sushant Sareen for more on this. Sushant Sareen, as far as India is concerned, radical Islamic terror mainly is Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, Pakistan state-sponsored terror. Is the US president only looking at the Islamic State or Daesh as radical Islamic terror in Syria and Afghanistan, in Syria and in Iraq?
Gaurav, the question you ask really lies at the heart of this whole war on terror. And the problem is the differing interpretations of what constitutes terror and what does not. And both countries, and I'm just talking about India and the US right now, they skirt around some of these issues. So, for example, yes, Daesh, both India and the United States are on the same page. On Al-Qaeda, we are on the same page. But when it comes to groups like Hezbollah, we probably will, close our nose and not talk about it. The Americans are very focused on Hezbollah and other groups like this, Iranian-backed groups. We are not, we don't want to talk too much about them. So there a disconnect comes in. Even in the subcontinent, while the US has labeled organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Hizbul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed as terror organizations, even so, there are certain limitations and certain compulsions which makes them deal with the entity which actually sponsors these organizations, which is the Pakistani state and the Pakistani army and the Pakistani deep state. So they are dealing with them as well. For their own reasons, the Americans will have to sup with the devil, which is the Taliban.
Yes.
And we can't do anything about it because we are not putting our boots on the ground, and we shouldn't. And we can't go beyond a point. So, yes, there are going to be issues on this whole scale kind of cooperation. But even then, I think we have had a very good level of cooperation with the Americans. The Americans have done a lot more for us on the issue of terrorism than any other country. Let's also remember that this whole homeland security thing and all, and I'll just take half a minute more.
Yes.
The homeland security thing becomes extremely important because one of the problems we've had is coordination between our own agencies, which the Americans have done very well.
Yes.
Let me give you a small instance. Since last 2 days, there are these fires in Delhi. Should we not had an intelligence system which was robust enough to tell us that something like this is brewing and it needs to be nipped in the bud? When all hell breaks loose, when the proverbial something that the cat carries in hits the fan, that is when we start ducking for cover and wonder that there was some conspiracy being hatched. We knew that this conspiracy has been hatched for the last 2.5 months.
Okay.
And yet, nobody knew what are the conversations taking place in places where things could erupt.
Or
so I think
were they aware and chose to turn a blind eye, Sushant Sareen, because there are some indications that the Delhi police had alerted the government. What steps did the government choose to take or not to take? But that conversation in just a moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump, they both spoke about how there is a need to intensify their defense cooperation, upgrade defense cooperation, not just in terms of buying of equipment, but also defense technology and trade initiative. A $3 billion deal for the Apaches and the Romeos. Let's hear them. I'll get you more on that story.
संबंधों को इस मुकाम तक लाने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का अमूल्य योगदान रहा है। फ्रेंड्स, आज हमारी चर्चा में हमने इस पार्टनरशिप के हर अहम पहलू पर सकारात्मक विचार किया, चाहे वो डिफेंस एंड सिक्योरिटी हो, एनर्जी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप हो, टेक्नोलॉजी कोऑपरेशन हो, ग्लोबल कनेक्टिविटी हो, ट्रेड रिलेशंस हो, या फिर पीपल टू पीपल टाइज। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका आर्थिक क्षेत्र में ओपननेस और फेयर एंड बैलेंस ट्रेड के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। पिछले 3 वर्षों में हमारे द्विपक्षीय व्यापार में डबल डिजिट ग्रोथ हुई है और वह ज्यादा संतुलित भी हुआ है। अगर एनर्जी, सिविल एयरक्राफ्ट, डिफेंस और हायर एजुकेशन ले तो पिछले 4-5 सालों में सिर्फ इन 4 सेक्टर्स ने ही भारत अमेरिका के आर्थिक संबंधों में लगभग $70 बिलियन का योगदान किया है। इंडस्ट्री 4.0 और 21st सेंचुरी की अन्य उभरती टेक्नोलॉजी, उस पर भी इंडिया यूएस पार्टनरशिप इनोवेशन और एंटरप्राइज के नए मुकाम स्थापित कर रही है। भारतीय प्रोफेशनल्स के टैलेंट ने अमेरिकी कंपनीज की टेक्नोलॉजी लीडरशिप को मजबूत किया है।
Another major focus of my discussions with Prime Minister Modi is forging bilateral economic relationships that is fair and reciprocal. Our teams have made tremendous progress on a comprehensive trade agreement, and I'm optimistic we can reach a deal that will be of great importance to both countries. Since I took office, U.S. exports to India are up nearly 60%, and exports of high-quality American energy have grown by, thank you very much, 500%. That's great. I know Prime Minister Modi will agree that this has been a very productive visit for both of our countries. Earlier today, we expanded our defense cooperation with agreements for India to purchase more than $3 billion of advanced American military equipment, including Apache and MH-60 Romeo helicopters, the finest in the world. These deals will enhance our joint defense capabilities as our militaries continue to train and operate side by side. As we deepen our partnership with India, we remember that our two countries have always been united by shared traditions of democracy and constitutions that protect freedom, individual rights, and the rule of law. During our visit, we discussed the importance of a secure 5G wireless network and the need for this emerging technology to be a tool for freedom, progress, prosperity, not to do anything where it could be even conceived as a conduit for suppression and censorship.
I once again want to bring in India Today's Shiv Arur for more on the story. And Shiv, you were the first to break the story about India acquiring the Apaches, 6 for the Indian Army, and the 24 MH-60 Seahawk Romeos for the Indian Navy. But Shiv, is this $3 billion deal just the beginning? Because for the first time, US President Donald Trump's also openly spoken about armed drones and their availability to India.
You know, the defense trade has, been one of the pipelines that has been uninterrupted over the last 15 years or so, leading to deals in excess of $20 billion. They've sort of sweetened the diplomatic engagement in many ways, but they are only a very small part of a much larger strategic partnership and a potentially larger strategic partnership, Gaurav. Like you heard President Trump say just now that he wants to revitalize the Quad along with Prime Minister Modi in engagements with Australia and Japan. But as far as these defense deals are concerned, they're hugely important. The Apache helicopters for the Indian Army, the MH-60 Romeo helicopters, which the Indian Navy has desperately wanted for many, many years, are also a capability, acquisition. Remember, the MH-60 Romeo helicopters, for instance, have long been needed by a desperate Navy, partially also because of China's submarine adventurism in the Indian Ocean.
Yes.
And these helicopters, as we've seen, which are operated by Australia, Japan and the United States, are extremely potent, machines for anti-submarine warfare. And this is something that the Indian Navy has been lacking in for a very long time. So that's only a very small example. But if you look at the larger weapons trade pipeline, you've got the NASAMS 2 air defense system, you've got armed Avenger drones like you just mentioned, you've got fighter aircraft that the United States is looking to push through for an Indian competition that's coming up. So the weapons trade, is a machine, a self-sustaining machine that's going to continue non-stop for many years to come now.
Oh, absolutely. Sushant Sareen, revitalizing the Quad. That's a very important signal that's being sent out. But Sushant Sareen, what does revitalizing the Quad translate into in terms of action on ground, or if I may, action in waters?
Frankly, Gaurav, your guess is as good as mine, because there isn't a whole lot of clarity. I think we all the four countries agree on the kind of threat that China poses to what they call the freedom of navigation, and all the other stuff, the global commons and all the other jargon which is used. I think there is complete agreement on all of that. What there is not agreement on is what are the kind of structures you are going to build to keep the Chinese at bay. Are you actually going to play that balancing game? What is going to be the trust level? How deep is every side, every component of this Quad going to go into this relationship? Will it be a NATO of the East? What will it be? And I think that is what we need a whole lot of clarity on. I think while the Indians have been flirting with the Americans on this whole Quad idea, as have the Americans with India, I don't think there is that kind of a structured thinking on which way we want to go from here. In India, for example, we seem to be hedging our bets. We want a much closer defense and strategic relationship with the Americans, but we don't want to, give up on the Chinese entirely. The problem, however, is, and I have nothing against that strategy, provided the Chinese were playing ball. But as we have seen in the last 1 year, especially after August 5, the kind of actions which the Chinese have taken, there is no way I can call them a friendly country anymore. I forget adversary, they're a positively hostile country today. At every stage, they have sabotaged us, they have undermined us, they have done whatever they could to damage us. So, we need to be clear that do we want to keep playing this hedging game, or do we want to jump into bed with the Americans? But then, how reliable are the Americans going to be? How
The
much
nail on
of
its head,
equity do they
Sushant
have in
Sareen,
this
and
whole
perhaps
Quad thing?
that's the point that the Prime Minister has also been making repeatedly, that India is not non-aligned, but as government sources say, India in the 21st century is multi-aligned, as close to the Americans